like those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Liberalism is back in style. Welcome to the evolution.
What if you knew Fox News was just lying to you? How could you watch when you know?
He was voted Variety Entertainer of the Year in the Excellence in the Arts Award. And is one of the highest Arbitron, now Nielsen-rated talk radio hosts in Las Vegas. He is also a refreshing voice of logic and reason. Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Doug Basham.
And good morning, my fellow wokes and Republican jokes. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Doug Basham, and welcome to the Doug Basham Show right here on KSHP in Las Vegas and on social media, and to a genuine demonstration of excellence in broadcasting. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all again. I am Doug Basham, your certified card-carrying member in good standing of the Enemy Within Brigade, also known as one radical leftist lunatic who needs to be handled by the American military. And they just might be right. I welcome you all to day 13 of Morning in America, morning spelled with a U, of course, as those of us who respect our Constitution grieve the loss of the great American experiment in self-governance and democracy, and anxiously await the stroke that might just save America and mankind. My website is DougBasham.com, last name spelled B as in Bob, A-S-H-A-M as in Mary, DougBasham.com, my email, Doug@DougBasham.com. That said, I extend a warm yet melancholy welcome to those of you listening on KSHP, AM 1400 and 107.1 FM on your radio dial here in Las Vegas. We are also broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and of course, X. Now, if you go to my website, again, DougBasham.com, you will discover it's all of one page. At the top, you'll see the show's logo, and what a logo it is. Underneath, 11 links, most to my social media sites, also one to contact me via email. The two links I want to call your attention to the most are, one, my YouTube page, and two, my TikTok page. On my YouTube page, I would respectfully ask you hit the subscribe button. On TikTok, please hit the red follow button. Do it. Now, if you would like to watch the show live and not just listen to it, reason being this show is very clip intensive and I play video clips. Also, because this face was made for television. From my website, go to my YouTube, Facebook, or X pages. And if I happen to violate YouTube policies and they suspend my stream mid-show, just go back to my website, then to either my Facebook or X page. Oh, real quick, something kind of neat happened over the weekend. I was cutting clips from my past shows in order to post them as individual short clips on my social media sites. And I was trying to post this one clip on TikTok. And all of a sudden, something happened. My screen didn't really freeze, but it was like taking forever for this one rather short clip to load when longer clips were loading much quicker. And finally they told me, this clip has been deleted. Reason being, they accused me of spreading hate speech, which I wasn't. And they said this was my second strike. The first one being when they stopped streaming the show a couple weeks ago accusing me of spreading misinformation, also which I wasn't. I appealed the first one and never heard back from them. And then on Saturday, they offered me the opportunity to appeal my second strike. And I did, because the clip in question was the bit I did on neo-Nazi incel Nick Fuentes in the last week or so. He was the guy that said, "Your body, my choice, men win again." And if you'll recall, I wasn't spreading hate speech, I was identifying it and condemning it. And so, I appealed the deletion of this clip. And son of a gun, later that same day, they got back to me, said they had undeleted the clip, and they apologized for the original deletion. Go figure. I just wish they'd gotten back to me over the disinformation accusation, because that's something I have never done and will never do. And I say that knowing full well that the low information voters in Trump's brain-dead MAGA cult base think most, if not all, of what I say is disinformation. Why? Because it is the polar opposite of the lies their media tells them that they willingly choose to believe. But you know, it is what it is, and all you can do is call out their lies, prove their lies, and report the truth, which is what I do. But you see, the problem with these social media sites, they don't give you a way to actually contact them, say via email, in which you can make your case and defend yourself properly against their accusations. They ask you why you think their judgment is in error, and then they give you like 5 multiple choice responses, from which you have to choose one. Well, in both cases, both strikes, none of the choices matched the defense I wanted to make. So you're kind of at their mercy, and honestly, I was surprised when I heard back from TikTok this time. And I would surely like them to get back to me on my first and now only strike. One for the good guys. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you would like to talk on the radio somewhere in our second half hour together, that's 702-221-SAVE, as in save our democracy, something we didn't do this election. And now on to our broken news for the day. The first thing we need to do today is talk. Well, first thing I need to do is talk. To everyone listening, of course, but in particular to someone who called the show on Friday. His name was Lance. Now, Lance, I'm not going to beat up on you in absentia. That means you're not here or on the line with me. And you are more than welcome to call in again. But during his call, Lance, who obviously voted for the Orange Trader, was defending Trump's pick of Bobby Brainworms to head HHS, Health and Human Services. But the way he did it was not to cite Kennedy's qualifications, but rather to attack Rachel Levine, who was the current Assistant Secretary for Health. And Lance made it obvious by his derision and laughter that his disapproval of Levine was based on her looks and not her qualifications. And why would that be? Because that's exactly what the media Lance obviously chooses to patronize, his right-wing propaganda, fascist hate media. That's what they do. They don't tell their audience what Levine's qualifications are. They just show unflattering photos and make fun of her looks and the fact that she's a trans woman. Real mature, but give Fox credit. They know their audience. And one member of their audience who eventually became president, he knows Fox's audience and his base as well.
We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
You know, I'm going to play that again. This time, watch Don Jr. on the left side of the screen. When Trump delivers his "I love the poorly educated" line, he does this. Don Jr. does this with his eyes. He closes them and moves his head to the side a bit. as if to say, first, it's bad enough to brag that you got the poorly educated vote, but then to say you love the poorly educated? And then he looks over at his brother Eric as if to say, how much Adderall did you give him today? Watch it again. Watch Don Jr. on the left.
We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
In any other environment, on any other planet, that would be as offensive a line as you could deliver. But you know how he gets away with downright insulting rhetoric like that? Because the people to whom he's referring aren't educated or smart enough to realize they're who he's talking about. But back on point, Rachel Levine might not be that much to look at. Well, number one, I didn't hear Lance mention the number of times he's been mistaken for Brad Pitt, whereas me, daily occurrence. No, don't go feeling sorry for me. I've learned to cope. I just sign my name Bradley, tell them that's what my mom calls me, and they walk away happy, thinking they got a scoop as well as an autograph. And number two, the difference between Lance and me, I don't care what Rachel Levine looks like. I care about her qualifications. And I'd like to show Lance and others why he should care about her qualifications too, and why dismissing her credentials and making fun of her appearance is just not cool, it's just not smart, and most importantly, it's just not in this country's best interest. And I hope you can be better than that, Lance, I really do. First, Rachel Levine's qualifications are stellar. They are immaculate. Dr. Levine has spent her entire life in the health field. She truly cares about people and their health. First, she is a professor of pediatrics and psychiatry at the Penn State College of Medicine. After graduating high school, she went on to graduate from Harvard College and the Tulane University School of Medicine, completing a residency in pediatrics and a postdoctoral fellowship in adolescent medicine at the Mount Sinai Medical Center in Manhattan, New York. After that, she moved from Manhattan to central Pennsylvania in 1993, where she joined the faculty of the Penn State College of Medicine and the staff at Penn State Medical Center. During her tenure, she created Penn State Medical Center's Division of Adolescent Medicine and the Penn State Eating Disorders Program. She was in charge of the latter when she was nominated for the position of Pennsylvania Physician General in 2015. In 2017, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf appointed Levine as Secretary of Health, and she was unanimously confirmed by the Pennsylvania State Senate. And yes, I checked. It's what I do. And at the time, the Pennsylvania Senate consisted of 16 Democrats and 34 Republicans. She was confirmed unanimously. Seems then even Republicans cared more about her qualifications than her looks. But that was before Trump made childish insults and juvenile remarks about someone's looks the right's preferred method of judging people, and to hell with qualifications. In the year of our COVID, 2020, Dr. Levine led the public health response on COVID-19 in Pennsylvania as the state Secretary of Health. She worked closely on a daily basis with the FEMA director and led a daily press briefing. That she didn't turn into a dishonest bloviating and quasi-campaign rally. In February of 2021, President Joe Biden formally nominated Levine to serve as Assistant Secretary for Health. In March, the committee voted 13-9 to advance her nomination for a full Senate vote. And later that month, the Senate voted 52-48, with all Democrats and 2 Republicans voting to confirm her. Levine is the first openly transgender person to hold an office that requires Senate confirmation. Oh, and Rachel Levine isn't just Dr. Levine, she's also Admiral Levine. In October of 2021, Levine was commissioned as a 4-star admiral in the U.S. Public Health Service Commissioned Corps, becoming the first openly transgender 4-star officer in any of the United States uniformed services, as well as the first female 4-star admiral in the Commissioned Corps. So even in her military service to this country, she was focused on people's health. Oh, and her medals and commendations? Public Health Service Meritorious Service Medal, Public Health Service Presidential Unit Citation, Public Health Service COVID-19 Pandemic Campaign Medal, Public Health Service Regular Corps Ribbon, Commissioned Corps Training Ribbon, Assistant Secretary for Health Badge, and Office of the Secretary of Health and Human Services Badge. Levine was named as one of USA Today's Women of the Year in 2022, which recognizes women who have made a significant impact on society. So there you have it, Lance. You can make fun of Rachel Levine's looks all you want. You know, if it makes you feel better, if it makes you feel more like a real man, if you will. But if you wish to be less shallow and superficial, consider her myriad qualifications, which, as you just learned, are impeccable. This is a woman who has spent her entire life in the health field. And Lance doesn't think she's qualified to be Assistant Secretary at HHS because he doesn't like the way she looks. Again, that's hollow and petty. Now, Lance also went on to trash Sam Brinton, whose name I couldn't recall on Friday, but he mentioned the guy who wears lipstick, so I knew who he meant. In 2022, Biden chose Brinton to be his Deputy Assistant Secretary of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the Office of Nuclear Energy for the Department of Energy. And while I agree with Lance that Sam Brinton doesn't take particularly great photos, let's take a look at his qualifications. After graduating from high school, Sam then graduated from Kansas State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in nuclear engineering. In 2013, he graduated from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, with a dual Master of Science degree in nuclear science and engineering. While at MIT, Brinton co-founded Stand with Science, a national advocacy network aiming to protect federal research funding. In 2014, Brinton was its exclusive director and had the same role at the National Science Policy Group. Brinton is also a past president of MIT's Science Policy Initiative. In 2016, Brinton was a senior policy analyst for the Bipartisan Policy Center, lobbying for updated regulations to make it possible for nuclear waste to be used to power advanced nuclear reactors. You starting to get the picture? Between 2017 and 2020, Brinton was head of advocacy and government affairs at the nonprofit LGBTQ youth suicide prevention organization called the Trevor Project. In February 2020, Deep Isolation, a Berkeley, California nuclear waste storage and disposal company, listed Brinton as Director of Legislative Affairs and in 2022 as Director of Global Political Strategy. So, is it any surprise that in 2022, Biden nominated Brinton to be his Deputy Assistant Secretary of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the Department of Energy's Office of Nuclear Energy? No, it is not. Sam Brinton was overqualified for that position. That said, I have no explanation for his penchant for stealing luggage. And because he had no past history of luggage theft, there was no one in the Biden administration who could have foreseen that would become an issue, nor could the FBI when they conducted his background check. In November 2022, Brinton was placed on leave by the Department of Energy after being charged with theft of luggage at an airport. On December 12, 2022, after a second similar charge for a July incident, which, by the way, took place right here in Las Vegas at Harry Reid International Airport, a Department of Energy spokesperson confirmed that Brinton was no longer a DOE employee. Again, I have no explanation for Brinton's radioactive fondness for stealing luggage. And I'm sorry, I just had to include the word radioactive. You understand. But that aside, again, his qualifications made him pitch perfect for the job for which he was hired. And it's not just Lance and his media who judge people's qualifications by their looks. Over the weekend, 3 things. First, someone posted a meme online of a photo of both Bobby Brainworms and Rachel Levine. And Bobby Brainworms' photo shows a shirtless RFK Jr. doing bench presses, lifting weights. The photo of Levine shows her in her full Navy regalia, which certainly wouldn't have been the pick I chose. So because one nominee is a guy who can lift weights and the other is a trans woman who likely doesn't lift weights, that makes Bobby Brainworms qualified and Rachel Levine not? Thanks to me, you all know better now, and that includes you, Lance. Second, the Republican senator from Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen. This guy's a real piece of work. Mark Wayne Mullen, he appeared on Meet the Press yesterday, and he was asked about Trump's choice to head Health and Human Services, Bobby Brainworms.
Is Kay's views on vaccines a deal breaker for you, Senator?
No, I absolutely appreciate Bobby Kennedy taking a hard look at the vaccines. There are some questions that had to be made, and I appreciate some of the scrutiny that's going through there. I think Bobby can answer all those. I've had multiple conversations with him. I've sat down and had long conversations with him, and I actually find the guy extremely intelligent when it comes to this stuff. And some of this stuff does raise a lot of questions. But I do got a question for you. The Democrats are spending so much time talking about the scrutiny of President Trump's picks, and yet did we spend this amount of time scrutinizing Biden's pick? I mean, we can talk about Rachel, the Assistant Secretary of HHS. I think that's a pretty controversial pick from whatever pronoun he or she decides to use. We talk about Sam, the Assistant Secretary or Executive underneath Secretary of Energy. And the individual was arrested multiple times for stealing luggage off of conveyor belts inside airports. And I didn't see this same type of scrutiny that the Democrats used on these individuals' picks. There's been a lot of picks. I mean, we can talk about Pete Buttigieg. Is he really qualified to be the Department of Transportation? But I don't see the same people given the scrutiny here.
Kristen Welker let him go on for way too long. But Senator. First, Rachel, as he so disrespectfully called her, was scrutinized and was confirmed. Second, it's obvious this jackass isn't any more aware of Dr. Levine's qualifications, or Lance Brinton's for that matter, than Lance was, although Lance certainly understands them now. And both Dr. Levine and Sam Brinton, again, were overqualified for the positions for which they were chosen. And like I said, there was nothing in Sam Brinton's background that suggested he was a luggage thief. But do you see the shallowness of these idiots and their weak attempts at whataboutism and false equivalence? Rachel Levine is trans, therefore what's the big deal with an avowed conspiracy theorist and whack job? You know, except that one was eminently qualified and the other is not. And third, a headline in the Washington Times over the weekend carried the headline, quote, Senator Ron Johnson displays photo of Rachel Levine and Sam Brinton when asked about Matt Gaetz, end quote. And of course, Ron Johnson is a certified idiot, bigot, and insufferable dimwit. And he proved it when he showed this photo. As he said, quote, "Here's my answer to the Matt Gaetz question. Did you harass Democratic senators on those nominees?" End quote. Well, first of all, Ron, if you'd done some research like someone I know, you would know, first, 48 Republicans voted against Rachel Levine despite her more than impressive qualifications. Second, as for Sam Brinton, his position wasn't one that needed Senate confirmation. But if it had, you think Republicans wouldn't have voted against him like they did Rachel Levine? Of course they would have. Because many, if not most, if not all of your fellow Senate Republican colleagues are just like you and Lance. And judging both Levine and Brinton, or anybody else, strictly on their looks is both shallow and superficial and, frankly, dangerous to America, when all that should matter is their education, training, diplomas, experience, and credentials, which, when all bundled together, gives you the full measure of a person's qualifications for the job. And if you want to do a side-by-side health qualification comparison between an experienced, competent, and dedicated lifelong health professional like Rachel Levine and conspiracy theorist Bobby Brainworms, that is a contrast you will lose every day of the week and 7 times on Sunday. And that's even with me admitting that not all of RFK's positions are crazy or even out of mainstream consensus. It's the ones that are not only outside the mainstream, but also so far removed from actual scientific fact that they're both ludicrous and dangerous. Those are the ones that disqualify him. And just to wrap this up, Congressman Johnson went on to further prove what an imbecile and liar he is by saying, quote, he was talking about one of Trump's other choices to head of cabinet, Matt Jailbait Gaetz. And Johnson said, quote, "Matt will end weaponized government and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department." End quote. First, contrary to the lies repeated by the Fanta-fascist and his right-wing propaganda fascist hate media, neither the government nor the Justice Department were weaponized. Second, it's not Americans writ large whose faith in the DOJ is shattered, but primarily mega morons who have been spoon-fed this weaponized government lie by Trump, his media, and pretty much every Republican in Congress, including you, Ron, for the past 4 years, non-stop. More on that in a bit. Number one, Merrick Garland should have appointed a special counsel to investigate January 6th and its ringmaster the day after he was confirmed on March 11, 2021. He didn't appoint special counsel Jack Smith until November 2022, over a year and a half later. Weaponized? Meanwhile, Garland essentially ignored Trump and instead spent all his time going after foot soldiers, and the only reason Garland finally appointed special counsel Jack Smith was after the January 6th Select Committee effectively shamed him into doing so with their excellent investigative work with far less resources at their disposal than Garland had, but apparently with more concern than Garland had. Weaponized? Number two, Merrick Garland's Justice Department indicted Democrat Hunter Biden, Democratic New York Mayor Eric Adams, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez and his wife, and Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar and his wife. After all, Garland wouldn't want to create the appearance of partisanship now, would he? Weaponized? And now there's apparently a question as to whether or not Merrick Garland will release Jack Smith's final report. Add to that, it was Merrick Garland's DOJ who made the decision not to indict Matt Jailbait Gaetz. Weaponized? And you know, I have tried to be patient with and somewhat gentle on Merrick Garland. I've listened to people with far more legal experience than I have, and I've heard them defend Garland and offer their rationales for defending him. But I'm sorry, I'm having trouble, much difficulty buying them. I think one of Joe Biden's most glaring mistakes was trying to be a nice guy and throw Merrick Garland a bone after he was prevented from taking his seat on the Supreme Court. Oh, and for those who say Garland would have made a much better Supreme Court justice, no, I disagree. I think the guy is a wimp. He can't tell you what time it is without crying. And while there's no question our broken judicial and legal systems played a good-sized role, I still place the majority of the blame for why the Orange Trader is going to escape accountability for all his treasonous high crimes against this nation on Merrick Garland. And this can only do further damage to our justice system among people like me who once supported Garland. I call this one of, if not the greatest failure of federal law enforcement in American history. I have no excuses left and even less F's to give for Merrick Garland. And yet, Steve Bannon, he has a bigger obsession with Merrick Garland than I have for Sidney Sweeney, for obvious reasons. And as you watch this clip, look at how giddy this little obnoxious twerp Charlie Kirk is when Bannon starts using vulgarity. First, he makes a phony attempt to hide his amusement by putting his hand over his mouth like this. Then he gives up all pretense, removes his hand, exposing his ear-to-ear grin. And that reminds me, how do you trust someone who's supposed to be an adult like Charlie Kirk, but still has all his baby teeth?
Hey, I don't give two fucks about going to Danbury prison, okay?
Whoa.
Here's what I give a fuck about. We're going to take down Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, and the corrupt DOJ and the FBI and all of it. I could care less, okay? I'm excited because MAGA's going to let out a roar tonight and tomorrow and the next day and the next day and burn it all down till we get to November 5th, where President Trump's going to win in a landslide.
The FBI's a Gestapo. The just part, Merrick Garland, you're going to go to prison, brother. We're going to be so relentless when we take power this year on your impeachment, but then after your impeachment to file criminal charges against you, you people are pure and entire scum, okay? You have weaponized this from the beginning. You're trying to criminalize against Trump. The only way you know you can stop MAGA and stop the ascendant movement of MAGA is quite simply, you're going to try to use law for it. Well, it's not going to work. We're not going to tolerate it, okay? That's it. We're going to massively win at the polls. Then we're going to impeach you guys. Then we're going to put you in prison, okay? Because you people are a disgrace. And what you've done here, behind the scenes, your little sneaky thing on this presidential records, on this archives, is absolutely outrageous. And Merrick Garland, they step in front of the microphones, him and Graves, this is the largest investigation in the history. Well, hey, baby, you're going to have a large investigation. It's going to be on you. And what you've done to this country, every email, every text message, every meeting, and guess what? We're going to do the same thing you do that got those guys in Danbury on these conspiracy charges for drugs. We're going to go flip people, get rats. There's going to be plenty of rats over in DOJ and the FBI, lots of rats that are guilty of crimes are going to flip on you, Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, Mike Davis said it, bro, you better be lawyering up. What you did to Trump and what you try to do to Trump, understand this, folks. If we had lost on Tuesday, Donald Trump was going to spend the rest of his adult life that was not in a courtroom in a federal prison. Nancy Pelosi and these had every opportunity to put him, and that's what they were going to do. They're going to put a superseding indictment, and they were going to put Trump in prison for 10 or 20 years to die in prison. To die in prison. That's the stakes. Didn't quite work out, did it, folks?
This is going to happen. And I'm a betting man, and I believe Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, and senior members of the Justice Department will be imprisoned for many, many years.
He should be in prison for the rest of his life. And my God, if we do our job after we win, he will be in prison for the rest of his life.
Good Lord. Merrick Garland literally helped Trump stay out of jail And Bannon still wants Garland to die in prison? Of course he does. It is the only logical conclusion to their weaponization lies. And this is what is both so confounding and exasperating, folks. The entire MAGA movement as it exists today is predicated on two lies. The justification Sloppy Steve is using against Merrick Garland and the entire premise of Trump's second term is built on a lie, namely the weaponization of government lie, which the right says was used against poor innocent Donald Trump. Never did a thing wrong, never told a lie. That in the 2020 election was stolen. That is the foundation upon which today's MAGA cult is built. And they're all lies. I mean, forget the investigations, forget the sworn testimony under oath, forget the evidence, forget the grand juries, forget the indictments, forget the trial juries. And you'll notice how neither Trump nor Bannon nor the right-wing propaganda fascist hate media, they never mention any of these nuances. They can't, or it would expose them for the anti-American, unpatriotic liars they are. Shameless charlatans like Trump, Bannon, and their media are destroying people's faith in the two pillars most critical for our democracy's survival: our judicial system and our justice system, our rule of law. And they are willing to burn every institution to the ground in order to defend the indefensible Donald Trump. And sadly, their brain-dead lemmings they're lying to just aren't smart enough to nuance it themselves. Their leaders just keep repeating weaponization, and that's all they have to repeat. And the brain-dead bobbleheads to whom they're lying, they in turn repeat it as well. Weaponization, weaponization. And while we can waste time commiserating over why Democrats lost the election, the bottom line is this: Donald Trump should have been in prison rather than running for any office, let alone the highest in the land, or at the very least, unable to run at all after being convicted in the U.S. Senate. And it was only the Republican senators' rank fear and cowardice and concern for their own seats in Congress that prevented that from becoming the reality it should have been. If the system had worked like it was supposed to, if the cowardly Republican lickspittles in the Senate had simply done their constitutional and patriotic duty, Donald Trump would have been disqualified from even being on the ballot. And that reminds me of Democratic Congressman, now Senator Adam Schiff's epic and historic closing argument at the conclusion of the Orange Trader's first impeachment. I've watched it several times. In light of this year's election, I would now like to revisit them because they are even more pertinent and poignant today than when he spoke them 4 years ago.
But here we are. The argument has been made, and some appear ready to accept it, and that is dangerous, for there is no limiting principle to that position. It must have come as a shock, a pleasant shock to this president, that our norms and institutions would prove to be so weak. The independence of the Justice Department and its formerly proud Office of Legal Counsel, now mere legal tools at the president's disposal, to investigate enemies or churn out helpful opinions not worth the paper they are written on. The FBI, painted by a president as corrupt and disloyal. The intelligence community not to be trusted against the good counsel of Vladimir Putin. The press portrayed as enemies of the people. The daily attacks on the guardrails of our democracy, so relentlessly assailed, have made us numb and blind to the consequences. Does none of that matter anymore if he's the president of our party? I hope and pray that we never have a president like Donald Trump in the Democratic Party, one that would betray the national interests and the country's security to help with his reelection. And I would hope to God that if we did, we would impeach him, and Democrats would lead the way. But I suppose you never know just how difficult that is until you are confronted with it. But you, my friends, are confronted with it. You are confronted with that difficulty now, and you must not shrink from it. History will not be kind to Donald Trump. I think we all know that. Not because it will be written by never-Trumpers, but because whenever we have departed from the values of our nation, we have come to regret it. And that regret is written all over the pages of our history. If you find that the House has proved its case and still vote to acquit, your name will be tied to his with a cord of steel and for all of history. But if you find the courage to stand up to him, to speak the awful truth to his rank falsehood, your place will be among the Davids who took on Goliath. If only you will say enough. Every single vote, even a single vote by a single member, can change the course of history. It is said that a single man or woman of courage makes a majority. Is there one among you who will say enough? America believes in a thing called truth. She does not believe we are entitled to our own alternate facts. She recoils at those who spread pernicious falsehoods. To her, truth matters. There is nothing more corrosive to a democracy than the idea that there is no truth. America also believes there is a difference between right and wrong, and right matters here. But there is more. Truth matters, right matters, but so does decency. Decency matters. When the president smears a patriotic public servant like Marie Yovanovitch in pursuit of a corrupt aim, we recoil. When the president mocks the disabled, a war hero who is a prisoner of war, or a Gold Star father, we are appalled. Because decency matters here. And when the president tries to coerce an ally to help him cheat in our elections and then covers it up, we must say enough. Enough. He has betrayed our national security, and he will do so again. He has compromised our elections, and he will do so again. You will not change him. You cannot constrain him. He is who he is. Truth matters little to him. What's right matters even less, and decency matters not at all. I do not ask you to convict him because truth or right or decency matters nothing to him, but because we have proven our case and it matters to you. Truth matters to you. Right matters to you. You are decent. He is not who you are. In Federalist 55, James Madison wrote that there were certain qualities in human nature, qualities I believe like honesty, right, and decency, which should justify our confidence in self-government. He believed that we possessed sufficient virtue, that the chains of despotism were not necessary to restrain ourselves from destroying and devouring one another. It may be midnight in Washington, but the sun will rise again. I put my faith in the optimism of the founders. You should too. They gave us the tools to do the job, a remedy as powerful as the evil it was meant to constrain, impeachment. They meant it to be used rarely, but they put it in the Constitution for a reason. For a man who would sell out his country for a political favor, for a man who would threaten the integrity of our elections, for a man who would invite foreign interference in our affairs, for a man who would undermine our national security and that of our allies, for a man like Donald J. Trump. They gave you a remedy, and they meant for you to use it. They gave you an oath, and they meant for you to observe it. We have proven Donald Trump guilty. Now do impartial justice and convict him. I yield back.
Wow. Just wow. And I got to tell you, in all my years of following and covering politics, this remains the most brilliantly delivered dissertation I think I've ever heard. And of course, it was tossed in the trash by weak, cowardly, anti-American, unpatriotic, Republican weaklings. First, desperate to maintain their seats and power in Congress, and second, fearful of repercussions from the orange trader and his base if they did the right and patriotic thing, when every single damn one of them knew every word Adam Schiff spoke was the truth. And I say, damn them all to hell, and I hope every single one of them reaps their just rewards and spend eternity begging someone, anyone, to please turn up the air conditioning. And kudos once again to Adam Schiff. You did everything you could, sir, but as this last election demonstrated clearly, some people just don't care what is right, what is true, or what is decent. And Donald Trump, again, ran on two primary lies: the weaponization of government and the stolen election. Trump intends to govern on those same lies, and he will burn as much of this country to the ground as he can in order to punish anyone who dared to point out the irrefutable truth, namely that he is a pathological liar, a sociopathic, malignant narcissist, and a traitor who gives not one good continental damn about this country or anybody who lives here, unless, of course, they can be a useful idiot or tool in his quest for vengeance. But you, Senator Schiff, while current and fleeting history describes you as Shifty Schiff or Pencil Neck Schiff, when the true and honest history of this time is written, you will go down as a true patriot who fought valiantly on the right side of history, and you will be remembered as having delivered one of the greatest and most patriotic arguments that has ever been heard in the United States Congress. From their graves, our founding fathers are still applauding you and saluting you, as am I, as are all true patriots who truly love this country. Word. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you would like to chat on the radio, that's area code 702-221-SAVE or SAVE. Let's head to the phones. We'll begin with Carl. You're first up. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, hey, Doug. Hope you had a good weekend. Listen, what I'm hoping for is that the day Trump is sworn in, that it's a rainy day with a lot of lightning. Because when he puts his hand on the Bible and says, I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, a bolt of lightning hits him. Because he said in his own mouth he wants to destroy the Constitution and tear it up.
Yep.
Well, that's basically what I hope happens. Obviously it won't, but
I didn't
form of his lying.
Carl, I didn't mean to hang you out to dry there. I thought you were going to continue. No. I didn't know that was all you had.
Well, I have a lot.
I was sitting there waiting for you to say more, and you just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, well.
But that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I want to let some other people get in and contradict what I said because everybody knows I'm telling the truth. So let's try somebody else.
You and me both, okay? Carl. I appreciate you checking in. Take care.
You take care. Okay, bye.
221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you got something you need to get off your chest, if you want to disagree with what Carl said, or if you want to disagree with something I said. Although, in all honesty, and not to sound braggadocious, I don't know how you can disagree with what I said when all I've given you are facts and the truth, neither of which are subjective. They are both objective. They are what they are. 221-7283 is our call-in number, area code 702. Big Bad John, you're next. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, John.
I'll tell you what Joey B needs to be doing right now is compiling a master list of people that he's going to issue blanket pardons to. The next stage of this fascist takeover, and Trump has signaled it by nominating Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. It's to install fear in the general population, and nothing installs fear than having a unqualified, rabid Attorney General whose only qualification is his fealty to Trump, going after somebody popular like Liz Cheney or former military leaders who he said committed treason and would have been shot in the old days. So, the next part of this show is it's a public demonstration to install fear in the general population. It's a public trial of somebody famous like Liz Cheney or one of these former military men who stood up against him, and to broadcast it live and to watch them be taken down. And then, the average Joe says, oh my God, he convicted Liz Cheney. What chance do I have? And then everybody falls in line and democracy's killed and he becomes a fascist dictator. So Joe Biden can truncate all of that. He could terminate the next stage of this fascist movement proactively. Rather than being a weak and feckless Democrat who knows he's about to get raped and decides, let's just lay down and let's just try to enjoy it and keep quiet and wait for them to make a mistake. Bull crap. You need to be aggressive. If I was you, Doug, I'd be calling the White House this afternoon and saying, I'd like to speak to the president about a pardon. Because, you might wind up on that list and be, you're a brave, honorable man and you know the risk involved. Who knows how petty and small this fascist dictator is. And Joe can truncate the whole next phase of this fascist movement by issuing thousands and thousands of pardons to anybody who might possibly fall under the magnifying glass of Trump's ire. And even frickin' Elon Musk is saying they're coming after him. I mean, Steve Bannon, that's his whole shtick. But Elon Musk is saying there's going to be the payback is a bitch, basically, is what Elon Musk said. So this weak and feckless Democratic Party needs to be proactive, and Joe Biden needs to issue thousands and thousands and thousands of pardons. If you're going to err on the side of being overly inclusive by a factor of 10, and pardon everybody who's ever said anything negative about Trump, because this next phase is ugly, and this is the dominating phase. When you install fear in the public, that's why Putin can do what he does. Is everybody in Russia is afraid of incurring his ire, and believe me, that's what Trump wants. That's where he wants to get.
I hear you, Big John. I appreciate you checking in, and I made that very point last week, that in his remaining time, Biden might want to start compiling a list of pardons. Will he do it? Who knows? 221-7283 is our caller number. Sarah, you're next. Thanks for calling.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hey, this is Sarah. I just wanted to say, I totally agree. I never thought Merrick Garland was a good pick. I think I told you that when it happened. I'm not sure. I don't know if I know. I guess I didn't know you back then, Doug. But I told everyone that he should not have been picked. I know that the ex-governor of Alabama was the second choice, and he should have been the Attorney General, Doug Jones. But Merrick Garland I know he's connected to the Oklahoma bombing prosecution, but if you actually go back and look, he actually never did much of the actual prosecution. He was the head he was the head U.S. attorney of that department, but he's not a litigator. And as soon as he started saying, I'm working my way up from the Proud Boys up, I knew as a prosecutor that that's not the way to do this. When you have evidence on videotape of someone doing a crime, you don't need to go from the bottom up because the evidence is there. You don't need to get people to rattle on you I don't know what he was doing. But when they did finally decide to indict him, I think less than 2 years ago, anyone who's an attorney knows nothing's going to come to trial. And nothing, if it did go to trial, it would go on appeal. And if Trump got back into office, which he did, he would just pardon himself. And it's just, it's just as an attorney and a prosecutor, it's so frustrating to me because Merrick Garland, I believe, is going to go down maybe as a villain in this whole thing. Like next to Trump, I think he is going to be blamed, and Biden's going to be blamed for appointing him. And it's going to, to me, it's just one of the craziest things ever that he was not prosecuted for any of his crap that he did. It's just unbelievable.
I hear you. Hey, sir, I got to run. I'm out of time. I appreciate you calling, folks. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you calling. We'll do this all over again tomorrow, hopefully with you. Until then, take care.
Doug Basham. Hungry for great deals? Look no further than